This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience as we get ourselves somewhat organized here. And we are excited to hold our first hybrid. I guess we're not going to call it an in-person meeting because there are some of our commissioners who are joining us by Zoom, along with a number of folks from the public. We're glad that they are able to be with us as well. It's nice to have the technology tools that allow us to do more than one thing at a time, right? With that, let me formally call this meeting to order. This is the Santa Barbara County Independent Redistricting Commission meeting of July 7th. Ms. Tilton, could you get us a roll call, please?
That sounds like it's live. Do I need to hold it? Okay. Before we start, we want to remind those who are participating by Zoom to switch to the English channel. So there'll be an interpretation button at the bottom of the screen. And just go ahead and select English or your preferred channel, English or Spanish. For roll call, Commissioner Trotsky,
Present.
Commissioner Twibell,
Present.
Commissioner McClintock,
Present.
Vice Chair Turley,
Present.
Commissioner Bradley,
Present.
Commissioner Kasich,
Present.
Commissioner Bray,
Present.
Commissioner Ochoa,
Present.
Commissioner Rios, and I don't believe she was joining today.
She's on the Zoom.
She's here? Oh, good. I'm sorry.
Here.
Sorry, I don't have
Present.
access to the Zoom screen from where I'm sitting. And Commissioner Adams.
Present.
Okay, all commissioners are present.
Very well. For those commissioners that are on the Zoom channel, I just remind you, if you need to speak during the evening, if you use that raise your hand button down there, we've got you on the screen so we can hopefully catch you as we work our way through. Second item on the agenda is a reminder to the public that on our redistricting website, drawsantabarbara.org, you can find two items of interest. The first is a report of ex parte communications recorded by members of the commission detailing their contacts with the community to date. In addition, there is a form available on that site for you to suggest organizations within the county with whom you believe the commission should make contact in order to continue with our outreach efforts. We would encourage anyone who has a referral to use the form that's on the website and add that name to that list, and we will do our very best to get in touch with them at our first opportunity. With that, Commissioners, the next item on the agenda is our consent calendar. The only item on the consent calendar is the approval of minutes for June 16th and the June 19th meetings. Does anybody have any corrections or additions to make to the minutes? And if not, I would take a motion to approve. I think you got to speak out. Mr. Bradley's going to make the motion.
I'll second it.
Very well. We got a first and a second. Ms. Tilton.
Commissioner Trotsky,
Aye.
Commissioner Twibell,
Aye.
Commissioner McClintock,
Aye.
Vice Chair Turley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Kasich,
Aye.
Commissioner Bray,
Aye.
Commissioner Ochoa,
Aye.
Commissioner Rios,
Aye.
Commissioner Adams,
Aye.
Chair Morris.
Aye. That item passes. We will then move to item number 5. Once again, due to the fact that Ms. Rios has decided that it's time to move to greener climes, or has found another professional opportunity and will be leaving the county, as well as the commission, we do find ourselves needing to make another appointment. We're getting quite good at this, right? We have 2 candidates this evening that we will be considering. They are Mr. Tom Martinez, and we will conduct his interview here in just one moment, as well as Michael Hartman. Mr. Hartman was interviewed previously in another cycle, and his interview recording was recirculated to the commissioners to review prior to this evening. Because of that, we will not interview him live again this evening, but he is a candidate for consideration and to be appointed tonight. Commissioners, I think we'll use the same pattern we've used in the past, so if you can remember which question you were charged to ask, we'll ask you to do that again. But let's begin by asking Mr. Martinez to join us. So, Doctor, if you could get him moved over as a panelist. There we are. Good evening, Mr. Martinez. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're pleased to have you. If you could, we see your camera's working. If you could unmute and briefly introduce yourself, that'll give us a chance to do a mic check as well.
Can you hear me okay?
We can. Thank you. Could you just briefly introduce yourself to the commission?
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Tom Martinez. I was born and raised in Santa Maria. With the exception of 3 years in the military and 3 at Cal Poly, I've been a lifelong resident of Santa Maria. I'm a proud Vietnam veteran, and my military service actually provided me the opportunity to return to school using the GI Bill. My parents were field labor. My grandparents were field laborers. My father loaded lettuce in the days when it was all done by hand, very hard physical work. Proximity to ag always was a source of summer and weekend work growing up for us. And starting between 8th grade and high school, I picked strawberries in the summer, picked potatoes during the summer. Through high school, I worked in packing sheds. When I returned from the military and re-enrolled at Hancock, I worked in the lettuce coolers and even dispatched at night my last 3 years at Cal Poly. I appreciated how hard my dad worked and how exhausted he was at the end of every day. So I knew that college would provide me an opportunity to work my way up and out of that, I guess, that hard physical work. I've owned and operated my own architectural firm here in Santa Maria for over 38 years and been active in the community, served on various commissions and boards through over the last 35 or 40 years. I was on the County Fish and Game Commission for over 35 years, Boys and Girls Club for 38 years. I'm still on that board, Rotary Club of Santa Maria, Marion Hospital Board, and currently the chair of the City of Santa Maria Building Department Appeals Board.
Very good. Well, thank you. So we have a series of 5 questions that the commissioners will pose to you. And we'll take about 3 minutes to respond to each one, and then we'll go from there. So who has our first question?
I do, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Bray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome, Mr. Martinez. Very first question, why do you want to serve on the Redistricting Commission?
Well, we as the general public need to be involved. All too often we hear complaints about the system not being what people think it should be. But if we don't make an effort to participate and help shape those elements, we have no grounds for complaining. After the last redistricting, by the very nature of my practice, working with ag community in, as example, the Cuyama Valley, I found it very difficult to imagine how they could have placed the Cuyama Valley into the first district. Never really thought about it at the time, but other than how odd. But then when the redistricting came up again, I started reading into it a little bit, and it talks about communities of interest, geographical barriers. And I thought, boy, this is really an odd configuration. And I think an independent commission could do a much better, more equitable boundary or redistricting.
Very good. Who has question 2?
I do.
Commissioner Rios.
Yes. So my last question. So give me one moment. So thank you for joining us this evening. Given the commission's members and what you know about their background, our backgrounds and skill sets, could you highlight elements of your personal background, experience, skills, and knowledge of Santa Barbara County that you think will add to the overall diversity of this commission?
Well, listening over the last week or two, the various comments from the commissioners, I become somewhat familiar. I didn't necessarily study their resumes in a lot of detail, but I feel that my 40 years of work in Santa Maria and Santa Barbara County has given me a great insight into the area. As I said, I've been very active in the Santa Barbara community. 98% of my work is in Santa Barbara County. 90% of that is specific to North County. And again, both commercial and ag projects. I think this has, helped me gain a lot of insight into the community. I consider myself impartial and fair and willing to listen to all sides before making a decision. And in many instances, the decision is not going to be the perfect solution for everybody, but it really should be a matter of compromise and working together to come up with the best solution for the county residents.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez, for your interest. I have the third question. How would you help the commission to draw lines that promote communities of interest?
Well, there is a tremendous amount of information that is going to be presented. It's already being presented in terms of demographics, populations, that we all need to be open-minded to, share our ideas, discuss the options, look at the various proposals made by the community. But as I mentioned earlier, with clients in Cuyama and trying to think about their representation, communities of interest, it really strikes a chord in me that we as a commission would need to really look at how best to make this in the best interest of the county. So we need to listen to all points of views and try to come up with the most equitable boundaries possible.
Good evening. Could you describe a project or other experience in which you had to collaborate with a group of individuals in order to reach a common goal? When you disagreed with others, how did you handle the disagreements?
The nature of my work being an architect, oftentimes it really becomes a matter of negotiation, mediation. City or county planners have ideals that they would like to see for every project, sometimes above and beyond what might be city or county regulations. We have clients that obviously want to oftentimes get by with as little as possible, as cheaply as possible. So it really is a matter of finding common ground, working out a solution that satisfies everybody. There are times when we've had to appeal projects because planners from the city wanted specific elements that we all felt were not reasonable beyond their jurisdiction to make a requirement, and we've had to appeal it to the Planning Commission, and that ruffles feathers. But in the long run, we've all got to work together for what is best in terms of what's going to be, the best solution. It's not, like I said earlier, it's not going to be the most popular, but I think in explaining our reasoning, you can come to some common ground. I've had several projects where it was not a popular item. It was appealed by the community, and sitting down with that group that might be appealing, with planning commissioners, city council, coming up with something that is palatable to everybody. I think it's a matter of being reasonable and fair, and getting upset with someone really does no good. You can disagree, but you can still be cordial, explaining your side of why you might not agree with them, but then a willingness to listen to their points of view. And it's, again, for the benefit of all parties.
Good evening, Mr. Martinez. I have your fifth and last question this evening. How do you think the Commission should address the problem of public education and outreach on redistricting to help encourage broad participation in the Commission's work? And what are some ideas that you have for the Commission to solicit public input on the redistricting process and methods of public outreach to ensure transparency?
Outreach is a very difficult animal, for lack of a better word. We can put all of that information out and hope that it gets reviewed. Doesn't always happen. Public service announcements, radios, TV stations are probably the best method. I know in the city of Santa Maria, most of the organizations, if not all, Mr. Morris would have a better idea than I, but probably 95% of all the businesses in Santa Maria are members of the chamber. So getting information out to those businesses, those community organizations, both in English and in Spanish, I think is imperative, and letting them know how important this upcoming decision is to everybody in the county.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Martinez. We appreciate your interest in serving and your service in your community as well before this evening. We're going to we're going to have a discussion among the commissioners here in just a moment. So please stick, don't leave, because we're going to make an appointment here in a few minutes. And if that's you, we need you around. So please hang on with us for a minute. Before we turn to the commission, though, we'd like to take public comment on this item. So if members of the public would like to address the commission with regard to the appointment of either Mr. Martinez or Mr. Hartman, if you use the raise the hand function in the Zoom, or if you're here in the public, if you would kind of maybe queue up over here by the podium, we'll work our way through this. So maybe for ease of convenience, if nothing else, let me just turn to the folks that are here in the room. Is there anybody in the public that would like to make a comment on this item at this time? Not, we're going to turn to the folks on Zoom, but since I can see you folks, I thought I'd start here. Okay. Ms. Tilton, anybody on Zoom that would like to make a comment at this time? Are you taking this one?
Yes, we have Thomas Widrow.
Very well. Evening, Mr. Woodrow.
Good evening. My name is Tom Widrow. I'm Executive Director of the Santa Barbara County Taxpayers Association. We represent all of the roughly 450,000 residents of Santa Barbara County because everyone pays taxes. We're nonpartisan, meaning we're made up of Democrats, Republicans, declined estates, etc. Anyone who pays taxes is represented by Santa Barbara County Taxpayers Association. And we want to thank you for the opportunity to weigh in on this important matter. For the Redistricting Commission, like you said earlier, we want to see members that are thoughtful and fair-minded and nonpartisan and come with a track record of achievement, successful participation and engagement in their communities. And this means in business and civic service, education, coaching youth, etc. And the good news about both these candidates, Mr. Martinez and Mr. Hartman, is that they come to the table with exactly those credentials. And that's fantastic. I've been in public service a good part of my life, and it's great that not only Mr. Martinez and Mr. Hartman, but all the members of the commission are willing to step up to the plate, make the commitment to make our county the best it can be by drawing the best and fairest possible lines for redistricting. That being said, I do have a comment. I think Mr. Martinez is most likely the preferable choice, and here's why. If you go to the document, that the voters voted on and submitted by the county at countyofsb.org, and you go to creation of commission, which is section 4B, it says the selection process is designed to produce a commission that is independent from the influence of the board, political parties, campaign contributors, and other special financial interests, and this is the key part, is reasonably representative of the county's diversity. I would say that, to have our county is 46% Latino, and a Latina is stepping off the board after serving, and I think it makes tons of sense if you do point yourselves in the direction of 4B. It says, once again, reasonably representative of the county's diversity. So we at the Santa Barbara County Taxpayers Association would think that Mr. Martinez would be the better choice if your objective is to adhere to that document. And I think that's your obligation. But the good news is, once again, Mr. Hartman, is well qualified and a good person and obviously engaged in his community, though we didn't hear from him tonight. I know who he is, and he brings lots to the table. So once again, grateful on behalf of Santa Barbara County Taxpayers Association to weigh in here tonight, and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Who's next?
We have Rebecca Gowing.
Good evening, Ms. Gowing.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Gowing. I am a local real estate broker here in the North County, and I've known Tom for over 30 years. And Tom is a really common sense kind of oriented person. And he's always, been involved in the community. He voices his comments to the to the entities when it's required, like the cities and the counties. And he always goes to bat for the individual. So I know he's been operated a very successful architectural firm here for years. He's an avid cyclist, belongs to a local cycling club. And he will be a great addition for representation of the Hispanic community in Santa Maria. So Tom is just a great guy overall. I can't compete with Tom Widrow's speech, but there it is.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we have Rhonda Hugheskin.
Good evening, Ms. Houston.
Yes, thank you. My name is Rhonda Hugheskin, and I'm, I'm calling to support Tom Martinez to the Redistricting Committee as well. And he's familiar with the needs of the North County. He's been active in the county for 40 years. He vows to be impartial and fair and have the best interest of the county at hand at all times. And I think that is those are the qualities that I think we need in this redistricting committee. So I highly ask you to endorse Tom Martinez. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And the last hand that I have showing, oh, there's one that just popped up, but next hand is Robert Mercado.
Good evening, Mr. Mercado.
Hello there. Thank you for taking my call. I would like to also support Mr. Martinez for the Redistricting Commission. You heard the laundry list of his great accomplishments. He's a local leader here in Santa Barbara County. We would be blessed to have this man be on the Redistricting Commission. Not only for being a Latino, but of course, the list of accomplishments that he has. So thank you for your time. Have a nice day.
Thank you, sir.
The last hand I have showing is Joe Pierre.
Evening, Mr. Pierre.
Well, good evening, Chair Morris and commissioners. I thought we had this all behind us, but it looks like we're revisiting the same issue as we had in the past. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Santa Barbara County Democratic Party. I'm the North County Vice Chair, and I want to thank Commissioner Rios for her time on the commission and her service, and let you know that we're supporting Mr. Hartman. Mr. Hartman had an excellent interview on May 12th, and I was really impressed with his credentials. As we know, and we've heard many times before, there's 46% of the county residents are registered as Democrats. And if we replace the outgoing Democrat commissioner with another incoming Democrat, then we'll keep that perfect balance on the commission. There'll be 45% of the commissioners will be registered Democrats, and there's 46% of the county that are registered as Democrats. So I think really the only option here is to replace Commissioner Rios with Mr. Hartman. There's also the fact that he is an educator, he's a teacher, and, Commissioner Rios has a background in education. So that's an easy fit. And he's from the 5th District. So I want to urge you to appoint Mr. Hartman as the replacement commissioner. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, sir. Is that all of them?
Yeah, I see no more hands at this point.
Very good. Thank you. We'll bring this back to the commission then and open it up for some discussion and recommendations from the commissioners. I think, yeah, so let's do that. Let me just check with those that are on screen first and see if there's anybody there that wants to start us off, so I don't miss you while I look the other way down the aisle here at the folks in the room. Anybody down here? Anybody want to get us started with either a motion or a comment? Commissioner Bray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate both of these gentlemen stepping forward, and I thought Mr. Hartman had a lot to offer. However, full disclosure, I've known Mr. Martinez for several years. I've known his involvement in the community. I've known his activism in the community. What I did not know, and I thought was interesting, was his background in the fields. I did not know that part of his rearing. And I find that very informative, and I find that very interesting. I also really appreciated the reason he stated why he wanted to serve on the commission. I found that very informative and really quite to the point. And the last point I would like to make is I think we are underrepresented in the Latino ethnicity, and that concerns me.
Oh. So are you nominating? Is that a motion? Can we get us started in the right format?
Actually, I will nominate Mr. Martinez to fill the 5th District slot.
Fantastic. Is there a second to that so we can then have a discussion?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Martinez. Now, any discussion for or in opposition? Anybody want to make any comments one way or the other? Mr. McClintock.
So we're back to another tough choice and revisiting the issue that's
That Gordian knot we
Oh
keep
my God.
finding, right?
So my understanding, and maybe I was wrong, but my understanding was that when we were considering party preference versus ethnicity, that we were sort of charged to consider the importance of balancing party preference first, and then consider ethnicity and other factors. I hate to ask the question again to our legal counsel, but is that in fact the case?
There's a little switch there in the middle. Bingo.
I think what I said was not so much in order, but in terms of the weight based upon how important it seemed in each of the provisions that partisanship was what they were concerned about when they were drafting, because they somehow believed, and you know, they're fallible people, but they believed that if you had that amount of equality on partisanship, it would result in impartiality. And that's really what we're looking for, is impartiality. And so I think it weighs heavier because they kept talking about it. So you're trying to parse this language and trying to make some decision about that. So I would not say first, second, and third in terms of tiering it, but I would say that it seemed to be more important. But we've got to recognize that we're in an extraordinary situation. We have gone through this more than once, and all of these are factors that are terribly important. And age is important. You know, different parts of that are important. So as a lawyer who will have to defend your decision, whichever way you go, I think you have to go with what is the best decision that you think you ought to make, and that your hands are not tied. They're guided, but I don't think they're tied.
Please.
That's very helpful. I appreciate that explanation. I personally don't feel any sense of partisanship amongst the commissioners. So based on what you've just said, I feel as though I would like to weight the importance of having better ethnic diversity on the council rather than trying to fill the seat with another Democrat.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Bradley.
I agree.
Thank you.
I'd like to point out also that we're losing a very young, I guess our youngest member, and that Mr. Hartman is also younger than our other candidate, and we want to try to have some sort of balance for age as well. And he is, because he's a Democrat, that would give us the partisan balance that we're also trying to achieve here. I feel, I share Commissioner McClintock's sentiment that I don't sense a lot of partisanship here, but we also need to do the business of the ordinance, and if it's weighted toward partisanship, and this has been a very strongly emphasized point in the past when we've been looking to appoint other members. So I would hate to see us abandon that suddenly under the circumstance. I think it's still an important factor that we have to enter in. Also, I think Mr. Martinez, among other applicants that we've had come and talk with us, at every chance, every opportunity, we need to involve them in our outreach efforts. It's not just about us and the rest of the commissioners. It's about these active members of our society, you know, our North County, Mid County, South County, people who are actively engaged. We need their participation. And whether they're serving here on our board in an official capacity or out there doing the outreach work, we need their help. And I hope that even if we didn't appoint Mr. Martinez or others, if they aren't appointed, I'd still like them to be heavily involved in our outreach efforts. So I think on the partisan balance, I would still like to see Mr. Hartman appointed here to maintain that because it's been an emphasis in the past. I'd like to stay the course that we've been on and keep that partisan balance as best we can.
Thank you. Commissioner Adams.
Thank you, Chair. I too vote to support Mr. Hartman for a couple of reasons. Our small commission, our small number of commissions absolutely will need the help of engaged citizens in order to draw the maps, in order to really engage in this process. So whoever serves as a commissioner must do everything they can to engage and outreach. So I wanted to sort of start with that and kind of echo what Commissioner Bradley just said.
Thank you.
I'm not finished.
Okay.
I got a couple of more things to say. I'm focusing today on the things that we can control based on the number of applicants we have left for the 5th district position. We all know that we've had lots of turnover, and that turnover has been organized around an initial cadre of 45 applicants whose ethnic and racial representation was already complicated. In other words, we didn't have a whole lot to do with that, but the County Board of Supervisors commented on that much earlier in this process, that the 45 we were offered to work with did not very well represent the ethno-racial diversity of the county. What we can, because we have no sort of access to anything beyond those 45, what we can do is focus on the things that we still have power to focus on. And those include party preference and age. In the 5th district, we are replacing a 5th district commissioner who is Latina and a Democrat and young, right? Now, I think that both candidates that we are looking at tonight for the 5th district are amply qualified, but I am for Hartman for a couple of reasons. One, he's a Democrat, and the other is that he is engaged with youth, and he is a younger person than is Mr. Martinez. This is an observation, not a critique, but age matters. Age does matter, I said, speaking as an older woman. Age matters, particularly in questions of outreach. When asked about outreach, Mr. Martinez said outreach is a complicated animal or something like that, and then suggested ways in which we might present that out, or we might push for outreach: radio, television, the Chamber of Commerce. These are not the places where young people look for information. Didn't hear anything about social media. Again, this is not a critique. This is an observation. Like Mr. Martinez, I too sometimes forget that the Chamber of Commerce and radio and TV spots are not places necessarily where young people look for information. And because we, in the 5th district in particular, are a young demographic, I noted that and am appreciative of Mr. Hartman's long career as an educator in Santa Maria and elsewhere, and his close relationship, perhaps through his coaching as well as his teaching, with young people. So because of party parity preference and because of age, I am throwing my weight behind Mr. Hartman.
Thank you, ma'am. Vice Chair Turley.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Yeah, Mr. Hartman and Mr. Martinez are both equally qualified and impressive, and I truly think that we would be lucky to have either serve on our commission. The commissioners before me have made some excellent points, and I'm really trying to weigh who would be able to most effectively assist us with outreach to communities that we would otherwise not reach. And in particular, I think that Janet, Commissioner Rios, has been incredibly effective at that. And so we are really losing a lot with her leaving. And so this is not at all a clear-cut decision. But I think it's very, very important that we weigh the complexity of losing a younger commissioner who has access to young people, who has also access to underrepresented groups, who speak Spanish, who's Hispanic, who's representing so much by being on the commission. So I haven't really made my mind up either way, but I think that those are all really important points to consider, that we don't necessarily want to fill her spot with somebody who looks like her but may not be accessing the same communities as her, things of that nature. So yeah, I'm torn, but I'd also be very curious to hear what Janet has to say.
Commissioner Rios.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner Morris. I hate to be the one to put us in this position. I'll put that out there first off. I'm torn, just like Commissioner Vice Chair Turley. I think, like Commissioner Adams said, we were put in a very tough decision. I think that is something I will voice here. I leave disappointed. I leave confused as to how only the 45 candidates that made it onto the final, the 45 majority were white. I do ask myself, what was the process that was used to select if more Latinx, Black, and Brown people applied to be on the commission? How was this determined? And I think I state this just so that 10 years from now, when we go through this process again, we think about this and how do we avoid what's happening today, just because we are so limited on people of color, marginalized identities. And so I just think about this selection process that we have in place and how do we improve it moving forward. But being with what we have in front of us at the moment, a challenge because both candidates are very well equipped to do the work. They each bring different things to the table. I think my concerns are who can connect to the communities that need the representation, that don't have the full representation. I am young, I am a Latina, I am a Democrat. Who are those people in our community? Which of the two candidates have closer access to those communities? Who of those two candidates have attempted to make connections with those communities? Being really honest, the Chamber of Commerce, I don't, as a young person, I use social media. That I don't want to say that as a negative thing. I think that just being transparent, for me, social media is key. Looking at what our young people, where our Latinx communities finding information in Santa Maria, north side of Santa Maria versus south side of Santa Maria are two very different communities. Finances, economic status, very different. The line of work those communities do are very different. And so being an educator, I think that gives you access to those communities because your students, majority of them are Latinx in the classroom. And their parents are the ones that could be receiving this information if a teacher, if an administrator at a school is, able to provide that information. I also, again, I'm split because I am a Latina. Again, I'm Latinx too. And, Tom Martinez, he brings that to the table. I think, like I said, though, my concerns around this are just who can serve our Black, Brown, Indigenous communities, low income, LGBTQ. I think about those pieces. Who has access to them? And so I'm torn. I'm very torn, just like Vice Chair Turley, because I think they both matter, but I want to just point out who has access to those communities, who has expressed that, who can do that directly without trying to build a trust that's not there yet. So I think that's all I will say for now. I'm still very torn, but that's just what's on my mind. Who can access those communities at this moment?
Thank you. Commissioner Kasich, Commissioner Ochoa, either of you want to jump in before we move on? Commissioner Kasich, I see your mute went off.
Yeah, I think it's everybody who's spoken so far has brought up, I think, a very good point. which is it is very difficult that both candidates bring tremendous experience, very well qualified. In a perfect world, we could go back and readjust things, but we can't. We were given a set of orders to say we need to move forward, and you need to take the following items into consideration, first in this order, and then this order, and this order. That changes than just saying putting two candidates up for the appointment, and then you go at it. It's not head to head. We have been given instructions. So although I'm still undecided, I just think that the partisanship, as I've heard from our legal counsel, does need to weigh at a higher level. That's it for me.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Ochoa, anything to add before we take a first vote?
No, thanks.
Very well. Anybody else? Yeah, Commissioner Trotsky.
I also want to make reference to the first meeting with the County of Supervisors back in December when they had first drawn by lottery the commissioners, and they were pretty outraged that there wasn't diversity. And we've had now, this is the third time we've had an opportunity to elect a Hispanic person to our commission. And this will be the third time that we've overlooked a Hispanic person for a white male. How can we possibly have 6 white males on the commission, and when we have a perfectly good candidate here that represents, has knowledge of the agricultural community, that has the ability to reach the hard to count community? He speaks their language. I don't think we need yet another professor or teacher on the commission. I don't see that a 40-year-old is going to be all that much more relating to youth. I just think that we have an opportunity here to do some effective outreach with Mr. Martinez on the commission, and we will better represent the people that we're trying to reach and involve in our redrawing of the lines. And I just think it's going to be really bad optics if we yet again overlook a qualified Hispanic person. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Toibel?
I just wanted to add that he has been a board member of the Boys and Girls Club. I think that is a lot of outreach to a lot of communities, and to me that's an important, age aside. If he's serving on that board, he's helping a lot of kids, youth, and an underserved community.
Commissioner Turley.
Yes, I just wanted to respond and correct the record that Commissioners Almeida, Rios, and Ochoa were all chosen out of the pool of 45. So when given the option, they were our first choices, and they are all Latinx. And that also age is one of the demographics that's listed and is probably the most underrepresented demographic on the commission right now. So I just wanted to make sure that that was something that we were considering.
Thank you. Well, I'll share a couple thoughts. Commissioner McClintock, referenced, we keep coming back to this point, right? And I actually spent some time this week going back to that original pool and looking at who's remaining, not just in this district, but God forbid we have to do this again. And this is the issue we're going to face every single time. There is not a Democrat minority ethnic person left in the pool. Every ethnic member of the pool is a Republican, right? And so this is the tug of war we continue to have, and we're going to continue to have, and there's not a thing the 11 of us can do about it. It's the nature of the names on the list and who came out of whatever black box they came out of. And as Commissioner Kasich said, it doesn't do any good to go back and cry over it. It is what it is. These are the folks that we have. That said, I do think that we have, worked very hard to maintain that partisan balance, and I don't think that's for nothing. I do think, as Ms. Orden said, I think it gets to impartiality, right? I take note of the fact that the state commission is forced 4-4-4, right? And they're not trying to hit a proportionality. They went 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, 4 undecideds. And they didn't even pretend that they were trying to hit anything close to some proportionality. And I think there's a reason for that. So that weighs. But I also look at the fact that this county is, has a significant minority population, primarily Hispanic. It is not unlikely, I'm not forecasting at the moment, but it is not outside the realm of possibility that we will be creating a minority-majority district in this next round of map making. And so that needs to be in there as well. And so, Mr. McClintock, I'm glad you asked the question again. And I think Ms. Orden tried to, to the best that she can kind of untie this spaghetti knot that we keep facing, tried to put some clarity to it. Age, I think, does matter, but I don't think we can solve that problem today. We don't have a young candidate on the pool, right? Maybe young by comparison to the rest of us, but that's not a deep bar, right? So I'm not sure that we can get to that. I also think it's important to recognize that outreach to any subpopulation is the responsibility of all of us, right? I don't think we can go, this person is our representative to the youth in the county, right? It's their problem to go and do that outreach. Or this person needs to go to the agricultural community. Or this person needs to go to the, pick another subgroup, right? Even within districts, right? I don't think that just because I was originally selected from a list in the 5th district, and that's where I live, that it's now up to myself and whoever we pick now to manage the 5th district, right? Or Mr. McClintock in the 2nd. So I think once we get on this side of the table, we all need to speak for everybody. I appreciate the 2 or 3 of you that commented on your perception that we're not bringing partisanship to our work. And I hope that continues to be the case when we start to have to get into the really consequential decisions, right? I had an opportunity this afternoon before I came to the meeting tonight to do an interview with one of our local media outlets, and the reporter asked the question about our how we balance on the demographics, and I acknowledge that we don't, right? The simple fact is this commission does not look like the people that we represent. She then followed up that question by asking, did I think that it would impact the outcome and the credibility of the work that we do over the next however many months? And I told her that I didn't believe that it needed to, right? And the reason for that, I pointed her to 2 things. One, I think as a group, this commission has committed that we are not authoring maps, right? We have completely defaulted that to the members of the public. And so to those that are listening and those you can influence, the way that I think the public influences the outcome is to give us maps, right? And as many of them as they think work and should be considered, right? So that's one. And then the other is I think the law itself has a lot of guardrails in it, right? Balanced population, balanced demographics, contiguity, all of the things we've talked about, and we're going to talk about a little bit more this evening as we get into the public comments, right? And so I think those guardrails kind of mitigate against our ability to maybe do, mischief, right? So I think once we get looking at the maps that are submitted, the ones that make sense and that fit within those guardrails are going to rise to the top. We'll have lots of opportunity for the public to comment on those maps again, and to help refine them and guide us through that work. So at the end of the day, I do think we ought to do the best we can to balance all of these conflicting requirements. But ultimately, I think we need to find people that are willing to do the work, and that have that ability to add to our consideration and our deliberations. And I'm not sure that we could do much worse than flipping a coin tonight, but that's not how we're going to do this. So unless somebody else on the commission has a comment to make, I think we do have a motion and a second on the floor, and we'll turn to a vote. And if we get a majority, that'll be that. And if we don't, we'll try something different. And let me just clarify, Ms. Warden, that I know, and forgive me for not checking this earlier. I know when we do maps, the ordinance says 7 votes. It's a supermajority. Is that the case for business of the commission, or is it a simple majority on this kind of an item?
Yes, I wish I had been thinking about it earlier, but
Should have called you earlier.
I do believe it is a simple majority.
Maybe we should.
We have never come on this vote before.
We've never been right at the edge.
I
So
was recalling just the opposite, so I can check it.
Yes,
Pretty close.
Let's look at it for sure.
let's pull that up and take just a moment to make sure, Ms. Tilton, if you can.
Okay, I will look that up, and I do want to also, I failed to mention that we had written public comment, and 2 of them pertain to this particular item.
Okay, so let's take
Perfect
those 2,
timing.
and then we'll read
Okay,
the
so
others in later.
we had public comment from Denise Adams supporting Tom Martinez, and we had written public comment from Colleen Estrada supporting Tom Martinez.
Okay.
Let me just look real quick for that ordinance.
So, folks on the Zoom call, if you'll give us half a moment, we're going to make sure we're clarified on this.
We do have 2 commissioners who have their hands raised.
Commissioner Adams, let's go to you, and then Commissioner Turley.
Thank you, Chair Morris. I just want to have you read the motion that we are going to be voting on so that I've got it clear in my head.
Absolutely, we'll do that. Commissioner Turley, and I see your chat item, if that's the same.
Yeah. Do we need to accept Janet's resignation before we vote on her replacement?
You know, we probably,
We did accept it
Okay.
with a date certain, and just like when we switch out council members, she serves until the new person's sworn in.
so she would be able to cast a
would
vote
vote.
on this
Mhm.
item,
Thank
and then
you.
she would be excused at that point from voting.
Yes.
Yes.
Certainly can participate in the
Yeah,
rest of
we
the meeting.
accepted at the last meeting, which facilitated us being able to get candidates here tonight.
Perfect.
And I did check, and the way that it reads, it's 7 or more affirmative votes shall be required for any official action.
Very good. Now, all right. So with that, Commissioner Adams, thank you for reminding me we should clarify. The motion on the table, as I understand it, is to appoint Mr. Martinez as the replacement to Commissioner Rios as a member from the 5th District on the commission. Motion was made by Commissioner Bray and seconded by Commissioner Trosky. Ms. Tilton.
Commissioner Trosky,
Aye.
Commissioner Twibell,
Aye.
Commissioner McClintock,
Aye.
Vice Chair Turley.
Nay.
That was a nay, right? Commissioner Bradley,
No.
Commissioner Kasich.
Nay.
That was a yes?
No.
No, I'm sorry, the sound is a little bit difficult for me on this one.
Yays and nays sound the same coming over the
do,
microphone.
Yes,
So yes and no, please.
okay. Commissioner Bray,
Yes.
Commissioner Ochoa,
Yes.
Commissioner Rios,
No.
Commissioner Adams,
No,
Chair Morris.
Yes.
Okay, by my count, we have 6 affirmative votes, so we have not reached the required 7 as required by the charter.
Very well. We'll take a different motion, or a new motion. Anybody want to? Commissioner Bradley,
I wish to nominate Mr. Hartman.
is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Commissioner Adams seconds. Commissioner Bradley makes a motion to appoint Mr.
Hartman.
Hartman. Sorry, I just had a blank moment there. Age. All right, we have a motion and a second on the table. Let's do a roll call on this one.
Commissioner Trosky,
No.
Commissioner Twibell,
No.
Commissioner McClintock,
No.
Vice Chair Turley,
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley,
Yes.
Commissioner Kasich,
Yes.
Commissioner Bray,
No.
Commissioner Ochoa,
No.
Commissioner Rios,
Yes.
Commissioner Adams?
Yes.
Chair Morris?
No. I think we're in the same spot we were before.
We're in the same spot.
Commissioner Twibell?
Does Mr. Hartman speak Spanish?
I believe that we can bring him over as a panelist and ask that question.
Good evening, Mr. Hartman. The question that was posed by the commissioner is whether you are a Spanish speaker. If you could unmute, thank you.
Unfortunately, no, I am not a Spanish speaker.
Very well. While we've got you, Commissioner, I do have one other clarifying question. I presume you've seen our calendar of hearings. Particularly, I'm concerned about the fall. Reference was made to that you're a coach. I don't know what you coach or what your season might be. Could you speak to your availability once we get into 7 public hearings during the months of late October through early December?
Yes, I've checked through the calendar, and the meetings are, normally on Wednesdays, I believe, and it should not be an issue. I'm a football coach, for reference, and so Friday nights would probably be fairly busy for me. But I do not believe that the schedule would be anything that would, dictate me not, being able to complete my duties on the committee.
Thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. Commissioner Twibell.
Can we ask another question?
Sure.
I just wonder what your availability would be for outreach, if this is a busy time for you as a coach and a teacher.
Whatever, whatever this commission would require of me, I would make sure that I would be able to fulfill my duties. Just like anyone else who has, it's not like the rest of you guys are just sitting around, picking your nose the whole rest of the day. You guys all have very busy, full lives, and things, schedules will have to be adjusted, and the importance of the things that this commission is being brought to bear on to do will take precedent.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to acknowledge we're kind of out of our norm in follow-up questions here, but I do think that we need this for this particular appointment. We're kind of at a standstill here, and so I do think this is helpful for some of the commissioners perhaps to consider. Commissioner Turley and then Commissioner Adams.
Yes, so I don't want to be disrespectful, and so I think it's important that we don't assume anything about our nominees, and would like to ask Tom the same question, if he speaks Spanish.
Very well. Let's bring Tom back over. Welcome back, Mr. Martinez. Did you hear the question? The question was the same to you. Are you a fluent Spanish speaker? You're muted, sir.
You're muted, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
Okay. I understand Spanish. My grandparents have been here so many years that they could understand English, so we never had to verbalize it. So my speaking I'm embarrassed by my speaking, and I would usually want to use a translator because I speak, I want to call it Spanglish, because all of my phrases are turned backwards because I think in English. I can understand Spanish, but I honestly don't consider myself a fluent speaker.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, 2 things. One, is it kosher that we are bringing the candidates back for these follow-up questions? This is something that we haven't done in the past when we have been interviewing to replace someone. That's my first comment. And my second comment is that I just want to reiterate, I thought Chair Morris said a lot of useful things. And one of the most useful things for me, confirming my choice in the two motions I just voted on, is that he referred to the redistricting panel at the state level, which did a 4-4-4 partisan balance commission, right? For Republicans, for Democrats, for declined to state or independents. And I think that's what I'm trying to do here with my support of Mr. Hartman, who is a Democrat. I'm trying to sort of mirror what I have heard from the lawyer and from our lawyer and from others about the importance of that criteria above other criteria, which I am also juggling, including age, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Trotsky.
Thank you. I think we also have to consider public input. And we've heard at least, we've heard 6 people tonight that are in support of Mr. Martinez, and I haven't heard anyone in support of Mr. Hartman from the public.
Yeah,
there was one? Okay. Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
right.
there was one,
Joe
and
Peel.
I suspect there probably were others when we interviewed him the first time. I didn't go back and check the record on that, but it's likely.
But it seems to me that we would have heard from them again tonight.
Potentially, right.
And if I can,
Please.
No disrespect, but that's an assumption based on a calendar that had us interview one candidate in May and is having us interview another candidate tonight. And just as I appreciated Vice Chair Turley's argument that we not make assumptions, and so therefore ask both of our candidates about their relationship to Spanish. I want to not lean too heavily on how many people showed up to support a live interview tonight versus how many people showed up to a live interview in May, which the commissioners have looked at on tape in advance of this meeting.
Correct. You know, 1 second. Mr. Johnson, you have something to add to help us here?
I don't know that it helps you very much, unfortunately, but I did want to note that we do have a public hearing this evening.
Correct.
In addition to the usual business stuff. So unless there's driving issues, I would suggest maybe you ask any clarifying questions you want of Mr. Kasich and Mr. Martinez in case they're not available at the next meeting and move on to the hearing and bring this item back at your next meeting if you wish. Just because we do have people here for the hearing as well.
Right. Any last clarifying questions for either of the candidates? Ms. Rios.
I did want to also ask Tom Martinez what his availability looked like. I know that was asked of the previous candidate, so I want to be fair to both and follow up the same questions. Commitment-wise, availability, what would that look like for you? And if there's something that you think would conflict with attending the meetings and conducting outreach.
I am in total control of my schedule, and I have looked at the calendar, and I plan on attending everything that is on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Unless somebody's ready to indicate they're changing their vote, and we would need a couple of people probably to do that this evening, I think Mr. Johnson makes a good recommendation, and I think we table this issue for the rest, at least at this point. Let's go on to the rest of our meeting, and I want to make I'd like to maybe, how do I say this? If we're not going to vote right now, we're not going to make an appointment this evening, I'd like to excuse the county staff that we're here in case we did make an appointment to do to do the swearing in and make the commitment that we're not going to bring it up at the end of our meeting after we let her go. Is that acceptable to the commissioners?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Bray.
I move we table this issue until next meeting.
So, and for clarification purposes, our next business meeting for the commission is August. Ms. Tilton's looking at that for me.
Actually, the next business meeting is not until August 4th.
August 4th.
We
So-
would have time to put it on an agenda for July 12th. That's more of a workshop style.
Right. And it's,
Not July
and
12th.
and I don't think we're prepared. Yeah, so we do have meetings between now and the 4th of August, but they're workshops only. We had not intended to conduct full meetings, and I'm not sure that all of the commissioners had calendared to be at all of those sessions, right? So I think we would stick with that schedule if that's acceptable. And so, Mr. Bray, would you?
I will amend the motion, Mr. Chair, to table this action until the next business meeting requiring a quorum.
Very well, thank you. Is there a second to that?
Which is
Commissioner
August
Bradley seconds that?
Second.
Can we do a quick roll call on that, please?
And that meeting, just for clarification, is August 4th at 6 p.m., and it will be held in the Better Avia Hearing Room. That's a county facility in Santa Maria.
Very well.
Okay. Commissioner Trotsky,
Aye.
Commissioner Twibell,
Aye.
Commissioner McClintock,
Aye.
Vice Chair Turley,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Kasich,
Aye.
Commissioner Bray,
Aye.
Commissioner Ochoa,
Aye.
Commissioner Rios,
Aye.
Commissioner Adams,
Aye.
Chair Morris.
Aye. Mr. Martinez, Mr. Hartman, I want to thank you for joining us this evening and spending some time with us. I also want to thank you for your interest in serving as part of this commission. Apologize that we were not able to untie our knot tonight, but we will invite you back on the 4th of August, and our staff will be in touch with you to coordinate how that will take place. You're welcome to stay and participate in the public hearing this evening. Encourage you to do so if you don't have other commitments. But again, I wanted to acknowledge your time and willingness to be part of this process. So thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, commissioners, if you're paying attention to the agenda, and I will admit I didn't look as closely as I should have, item number 1 is actually our public hearing, and I jumped ahead to some business. But once I realized that, I thought that perhaps we could get this out of the way and let some of the staff leave before we jumped into the other. So we're going to go back to item number 1, which is our public hearing. The intent of our hearing this evening is to take testimony from members of the public about communities of interest and recommendations related to potential districting boundaries. As we noted in the invitation for this evening, we'd like to pay particular attention to the first district, but we will take comments related to the county. And that'll be our pattern for each of our meetings. Each of our workshops will have an emphasis on a particular district, but that's really for convenience. And we will take comments about anything related to redistricting that folks may have. So, Ms. Tilton, I'm going to turn this over to you for now. I believe you're going to lead us through the presentation again. Is that?
Yes, I'll be leading us through this
Excellent.
presentation, but I do want the public to know that our workshops, and our next one is going to be on Friday. I'll be showing the dates of those. Those will be a little less formal setting, and we'll be having our public outreach from Tripepi Smith present. They're present here tonight. Ryder Todd Smith and Claire Burgess are here tonight. They'll be here Friday as well. If you're able to make the Friday meeting, it will be a little bit more roll up your sleeve, hands-on, being able to talk with one another and huddle around some maps. And we'd encourage you to bring your laptops so that if you have difficulty with any of the tools, then I'll be kind of milling around during the break and shortly after the formal part of the presentation to help help you navigate the tools. We do have a Spanish translation available. We'll have them available at all of the upcoming workshops. And tonight's meeting is being recorded. If you visit drawsantabarbaracounty.org, you can listen to these meetings both in English and in Spanish. The next meeting that I mentioned is going to be held in Goleta. It will be a focus on District 2. So, but anyone, as Chair Morris mentioned, is welcome to come. We encourage you to come and have input on all of the districts, and with a particular focus on District 2. That will be at 3 o'clock, held at the Goleta Union School District Boardroom.
Ms. Tuttle, before you jump off of that, could I just clarify that there will not be Zoom simultaneously available for that meeting? Is that correct?
That is correct. We tried to work that out where we could do it, but it takes a great deal of coordination, as you're seeing here, also the internet access, and we wanted to truly be able to go and break out into groups, walk around the room, have people congregate at different levels of comfort with whatever tools they're using. And so we ultimately determined it would better serve the public if we could have that more casual setting and record it. So those who can't make it can certainly watch the recording.
So that was the other piece I wanted to clarify. So the comments portion will be recorded and available on our website after the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, thank
and
you.
anyone can submit written comments as well. Then we have July 12th, August 4th, and August 12th upcoming meetings. As we mentioned, the August 4th one is going to be also a business meeting, similar to this format. But the July 12th and August 12th will be a less formal meeting. You'll see that we varied the times, and that's required by the ordinance, that we vary the dates and times that folks can come and participate, so we meet a variety of work schedules. So today's goal, and the goal of all of our workshops, will be for you to hear from the experts about what the rules are and the criteria for drawing the maps, and then we want to listen to you about your communities, because you are the expert with your communities. I will provide some mapping tools training. Today will be more of an overview, and I'm happy to announce that all of the tools are now live as of this afternoon on the website. So if you haven't visited since late this afternoon, then please visit drawsantabarbaracounty.org, where you can actually start playing with the tools. So redistricting is done every 10 years based on the federal decennial census. And the election lines that are drawn are going to determine which community members are placed in each of the supervisorial districts. And then those voters within those districts will vote for one member to be on the Board of Supervisors. So you can see why you should get involved, because where the line's drawn determine on who you get to vote for to represent your community. And we want to make sure that our community is fairly represented, and that particularly our diverse communities, our lower turnout communities, our harder to reach communities are also feel they are included in the process. Redistricting, for the process, we are using a combination of what the state law says and also what the county ordinance says. The ordinance requires we have a total of 14 hearings. So it's a series of hearings, workshops. The hearings and workshops are kind of one and the same. It's definitely an opportunity for you all to get your voice heard. So we do have we'll be recording the comments that are heard. We do want to have the opportunity for you to feel like you are very much involved in the process. We will be providing census data and other data for you to be able to use in drawing the maps. And then once the maps are submitted, we'll be reviewing the maps during these settings. And you can see I haven't even had a chance to update my slide because mapping tools are now available. And we all want you to be involved. We're counting on members of the community to submit maps, because as you heard Chair Morris say, we're hoping to get maps so they can base their decision on which map the commission ultimately selects. The commission was formed out of Measure G, which was on the ballot in 2018 and voted on by the residents in Santa Barbara County. The ordinance itself requires an independent, transparent, and nonpartisan process, And as you heard us struggle with earlier, there are guidelines that the commission meets in its makeup. This is the commission as it exists today. Pardon me. The commission's selection was based on I left my cell phone and my water in the car. Sorry about that. I am fully vaccinated. In fact, I had a COVID test not long ago for a procedure, so I feel safe, but I did get a cold from my toddler grandchild, so sorry about that. Maybe you better first.
All right, so as Jaleesa was saying, this is our current commission, ever changing, but this is how it stands now. So engaging residents is really important, and we want to do extensive public outreach, and this is why we hired Tripepi Smith as an outreach firm to go and reach out to the community through various forms of media, and to encourage the community to come to these hearings and use the public mapping tools. So there are going to be 7 hearings before drawing maps. This is the 3rd public hearing. And residents will define their local communities of interest through giving their verbal testimony, but also through using the mapping tools, which we'll get into soon. And residents can also draw initial draft maps that have the five districts using estimated population data that we have available. And so we'll gather feedback on these draft maps later on in the year. So once we have the official census data, then those later 7 hearings will be actually considering different map proposals. And finally, the deadline for adopting a map will be December 15th. There are important rules we have to follow. The commissioners have seen this many times, but just as a refresh, we have to first follow the federal laws, the U.S. Constitution's the U.S. Constitution mandates equal population for the 5 districts, meaning they had to be very equal in population. There is wiggle room, but they should be very equal. They're within 10% deviation. Also, no racial gerrymandering, so you cannot make race or ethnicity the sole consideration when drawing these districts. The other federal law is the Federal Voting Rights Act, and you want to make sure that you do not dilute the vote of protected class voters who are from historically marginalized communities. Then, do you want to continue, or do you want me? Okay. When we make sure we follow the federal laws, then we have state law, which also includes Measure G requirements. First is following the California Voting Rights Act, which essentially just means making sure we have single-member districts. Next is to make sure our districts are geographically contiguous, just one piece each. Third is that we should not divide neighborhoods or communities of interest whenever possible. Fourth, we should not divide cities or census-designated places whenever possible. Notice here that this is a rank order of criteria. So if you, it may not be possible to satisfy these lower criteria because you have to observe the higher ordered criteria as being more important. Number 5 is that the boundary should be easily identifiable, following roads, highways, railroads, coastlines, etc. The district should be compact in that they do not bypass one population to get to another. And lastly, respecting topography, geography, and cohesiveness. Then the third set of, in this case, they're not rules, they're more principles. First is future population growth. You can account for future population growth that you might expect in a certain area by purposefully underpopulating a district while being within the limits of equal population. And finally, minimizing voters shifted to different election years. And note at the bottom here that there is this prohibition from considering the residence of any incumbent or political candidate, and districts shall not be drawn for purposes of favoring or discriminating against an incumbent, political candidate, or political party. Now, this term communities of interest is actually defined in law as a contiguous population that shares common social and economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of its effective and fair representation. How do you define your neighborhood or community? You can define it in all sorts of ways, but however you define it, we'd like to know what the boundaries are of those communities by using those public mapping tools or through your verbal or written testimony. And we'd also like to know what shared issues, concerns, and or demographics tie the community together. In a sense, how is this community impacted by county policy decisions? We want you to tell your community story. So you can participate by describing your community, like I said, verbally or in writing. You can draw your community on a map using the mapping tools we provided. And you can provide your input directly to the commission. To learn more, please visit our website at drawsantabarbaracounty.org or participate in one or more public meetings like the one we have tonight. You can forward your contact info for community groups we should contact or email the address you see there. We'd like to know if we should be contacting others we're not aware of. So please go to the website and review the list of groups we are contacting and provide any info for what we might be lacking. So now we're going to talk about the mapping tools. Shalise, do you want to take it from here?
As I mentioned, the mapping tools are live now. If you go to the website, drawsantabarbaracounty.org, and then click on the tab, Draw a Map, you'll see the listing of the various tools that I'll be showing you. And we have a variety of tools to meet all different sorts of technological skill and interest level. And the first we have on there is Story Map. And actually, after I finish with this part, Daniel's going to demonstrate the Story Map. Story Map is a way for you to view various demographic data and different maps and different layers. And we actually have a focus on District 1 at the end of within the Story Map. If you scroll through, it's very interesting. You can see various types of election districts, water districts, school districts, even some city council districts as you're scrolling through just to see where those boundary lines are. We have a simple map review tool. It's an online interactive review map. And this map is used for a couple of purposes. One, once maps start being submitted, they'll be populated on this interactive map tool. So each map will be assigned a number, and it will be listed on this tool as NDC professionally produces the map. And you can look at the various maps. You can even overlay different maps to see how they vary. You can overlay the existing supervisorial districts to see how they compare with a map. And there's all sorts of other types of layers that you can activate, such as school districts and Board of Education trustee areas, those types of things. And we have our paper map drawing tool, and it is back in the back of the chamber here. And what this tool does is for those people who are not comfortable with using the computer, who want to just take a map and simply outline what they think the district should look like, what we've done is we've divided certain areas into population units and assigned a population number to each of the population units. So you can do the math yourself. Your target is to reach a total of about 89,300 people per each district. we did receive a question online. Someone's asking, what population totals are we using? Because we all know that the census has been delayed. NDC has used various data to come up with estimated population totals for what we believe 2020 will be. I don't have it in this slide, but it will be also on the website as a tool for you to look at what we believe the existing districts are for each district, so you can see if there are certain districts that are either under the ideal population or over on the ideal population. I'm just looking here, and it looks like you heard Daniel mention that there can be no greater than a 10% deviation between the least populated district and the greatest populated district. And if the estimated census numbers that NDC has provided hold true, we are not population balanced. In fact, there would be over a 12% deviation between the smallest district and the greatest district. So we will be, within the next day, have that on the website. So you can see how the current districts, what we think the estimated population is going to be. And of course, we won't have that exact population until after August, when the census data comes out, and then 6 weeks after that, when the state adjusts those numbers to reassign state incarcerated people to their home addresses. So they'll zero out the state prisons and reassign those prisoners to their home addresses. So we expect to have that late September or October. Then our hope is that those who have started drawing maps based on the NDC guesstimated population, you'll just have to make minor tweaks to get within that population balance. So for now, we're guessing that each of the district needs to be close to 89,300 people per each district. So that's the simple map drawing tool. I'd encourage those of you who are there to pick one up. And it looks like this. On the back side, we've actually blown up the southeast detail of the southeast portion of the county because those population units get small. So you can't really see that. When you're picking them up, be careful because there's two different maps. One of them has the population counts in each of the units, and the other is numbered numerically, 1 through 89. And the reason for that tool, and that one, you'll know it's different because it says population unit IDs, so they're ID'd numerically. So you would draw your map first, get the population you think it is, and then you could use this tool to actually use it with an Excel spreadsheet. If you're comfortable with Excel, this is worth doing. It's not worth doing if you're just learning Excel for the first time. But if you already know Excel, then what you can do is say that you've numbered your districts 1 through 30, for example, are going to be in your district 1. So you'd open the spreadsheet, and you would assign those unit ID numbers 1 through 30 to District 1. And then you would click on the Results tab, and you'd see how well you did in a population balance. And actually, I did a pretty good job just guessing 1 through 30, because I got within 501 people of being population balanced. Now, I'm not sure that's going to make a great map, but that's the idea of it. If you go to the results sheet, and what's great about this spreadsheet is it also shows you the citizen voting age population, and we know that that's important when you're looking at the voting strength of your protected class groups. You can look at the percentage and see if you have a percentage that has maybe a stronger presence in one of the districts. There's another tool that's available, and if you're able to come on Friday, we're going to be showing some more hands-on demos of this, or go and look on the website for the recording of it. And we do have on the website actually a video that our president, Doug Johnson, did. It does refer to Sacramento County, but everything switches to any county or any jurisdiction. But he did a video tutorial of how to use District R, so that's awesome. That's on the website presently. And the way this works is you just simply take a paintbrush, and you can make your paintbrush be as big or as small as you want. If you make your paintbrush large and start painting, it's going to fill in a lot of that map. If you make it smaller, you can get more of the fine detail. It's not as powerful as the online tool I'm going to show you next, but it does work. And maybe it's a good way to have a rough start of what you think, how you think a map should be. And then you can submit that online. You be sure, and as you open it up, there will be instructions on how you should name it, so that others can see the same map. I think it's SB County is the tagline, and I don't have that screen up there, but there are very clear instructions when you open it up so others can see the map that you've drawn. This does give you all the detail of the citizen voting age population, but it does give you population balance, so you can see how well you're doing with having the right amount of people in in each of the 5 districts. And then the most powerful is the CalPERS Maptitude Online Redistricting. Sometimes you'll hear it called MORE, M-O-R. And this is the most powerful tool that we offer. Good news is it's a lot easier than it was to use in 2010. And we do have a quick start guide, and also on the website we have another video that Dr. Johnson did that will kind of give you a tutorial of how to use it. But this will give you all kinds of data in addition to the citizen voting age population. Once you draw your districts, you can submit it online. It's important to know when you're submitting these maps, please take the time to fill out a comment and let us know how you drew the map and why you drew it. It's also really important to know if, say, maybe you focused on District 1 and that was your main focus and you just balanced out the rest of the map. Let us know that, because some people may really love your District 1 and really hate what you did with Districts 3, 4, and 5. But if you give us a heads up that you were not familiar with Districts 3, 4, and 5 and you just balanced it out, then perhaps we can take your District 1 and put it with another map where someone has had a different configuration for the other districts. So it's very helpful if you put as much detail in as possible as why you drew the districts the way you drew them. And again, our next meeting will be Friday, July 9th at the Goleta Union School District Board meeting, and then our upcoming meetings. And this is the website, drawsantabarbaracounty.org. And that completes the presentation portion. And then it is a public hearing for us to receive public comment. And again, what we're looking for is we're wanting to hear from the community of what neighborhoods. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to turn it over to Daniel. Daniel's going to show a little bit how Story Map works, because we do want to have this be a focus on District 1. So he's going to give you a quick overview of how it all works, and then some focus in on some District 1 information.
Thank you, Shalise. This mouse is not working. Oh, it's upside down. So if you look at the homepage of drawsantabarbaracounty.org, you see in this tan box here the 2 mapping tools that we have that do not involve actually you drawing your own neighborhood or community or districts. These are for reference and to help you understand what the communities of interest in the county might be. And so the Santa Barbara County Interactive Map is what you click on if you want full access to all the layers, all the data layers, and you want to select whichever ones you want to display. And the nice thing about this interactive map is there's a base map gallery, so if you don't like the base map that is shown here, you can choose something else. For example, imagery will show you satellite imagery. You could also look at National Geographic style or OpenStreetMap. And so there are a lot of opportunities to explore with this interactive map. But everything that you can find on the interactive map is also shown on the story map in kind of a more guided format. And so when you open up the story map, you're taken to this, this first shot. I actually took that picture from Stearns Wharf, so beautiful shot of our county. And so I've walked you through this before, so what I'm going to do is scroll down to the end of the story map to a section I newly created. And this section is called District by District. And this focuses on each of the current County Board of Supervisors districts and examines what communities of interest might exist within each of them. Now, I'm going to refresh because sometimes the website has difficulty pulling up the content as it should show up. So hopefully, here we go. I think this will work. All right, so these are our current 5 supervisorial districts. And the focus tonight is this first district, District 1. So I want to emphasize before I continue that we are focusing on the areas that happen to be in District 1 right now. These, of course, you are under no obligation to keep District 1 boundaries as they are, but the purpose of tonight is just to look at what's in there right now. So right now, it occupies the eastern part of the county and stretches from Cuyama Valley in the north to the south coast. So clicking on this button will show you which cities and unincorporated communities are located in this district. So we have Cuyama and New Cuyama, and someone please correct me if I'm mispronouncing that, but I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. And there's actually a community services district in New Cuyama. And then the district stretches all the way down to this area. So it includes all of Carpinteria, Toro Canyon, Summerland, Montecito, and Mission Canyon, and half of Santa Barbara. If you click on zip codes, you'll see what zip codes happen to be in this area, and you can, if that is a relevant community of interest that you want to consider. This shows the percent of eligible voters who are Latino, and you can see that there are higher concentrations of that particular community in certain parts of District 1, particularly the west side of Santa Barbara, the east side of Santa Barbara, and then a little bit here in Carpinteria. If you click on percent renter housing, you can see that renters are concentrated in inner Santa Barbara, and to a lesser extent in the parts of Carpinteria along the beach. Percent college graduates will show you that we see less of that group on the west side and east side of the city of Santa Barbara, and more toward the foothills. Percent with income, $75,000 or higher. We see lower income groups around downtown Santa Barbara and higher toward the foothills and Montecito. There are 3 water districts in this district. There's the Cuyama Basin Water District up here, and then Montecito and Carpinteria Valley have their own. There are 3 sanitary districts, Montecito, Summerland, and Carpinteria. A fire might be very relevant and important for a lot of people, especially as we get into the summer. But what we see here there are fire districts that we find in District 1, Carpinteria, Summerland, Montecito, and then the city of Santa Barbara has its own fire department. And it's overlaid on fire hazard levels. So the darker the color means the greater the hazard. So these grayer levels have moderate hazard, but the darker color has the greatest. School districts, we have Cuyama Joint Unified School District up here. Santa Ynez Valley Union extends into this part, but there are very few, if any, people who live here. But if you come down here, you'll see that we have Carpinteria Unified that takes up Summerland and Carpinteria. And we have Montecito Union School District, Cold Spring School District, and this is Santa Barbara Unified School District. Its elementary schools are located here. We can see elementary school attendance areas within each of those school districts. So the pink are those that are in Carpinteria Unified, and you'll see that there are 3 elementary school attendance areas. And those could be communities of interest to consider in this area. Land use, you will see here that the different colors represent different categories of land use. So you see there's a lot more agriculture around Carpinteria and more of the lower density housing over in Montecito and into Santa Barbara. As a reminder, if you ever need to know what these colors are symbolizing, please click the button at the bottom left corner here, and it will tell you. Zoning is similar to land use, but it shows how each city or the unincorporated areas are categorized by their respective governments. So you see the reds are usually I try to standardize it so that reds are commercial and yellows are residential. And finally, the city of Santa Barbara has its own city council districts that might be something to consider. Now, the part of Santa Barbara that's in District 1 is most of District 4, all of District 1, most of District 6, and most of District 3. So these are city council districts in the different color, red, yellow, purple, green, and blue. And you'll see that there are also different neighborhoods of Santa Barbara. These are neighborhoods that are defined by the city of Santa Barbara itself. So they may not reflect what residents actually believe those neighborhoods to be, but you might consider these to be relevant in your decision making. And you see the white boundaries are what the city defines as those neighborhood boundaries. So that kind of gives you an overview of District 1. We'll be doing the same thing for the other 4 districts, and I think that concludes my portion.
Thank you, folks. Appreciate that. Never let it be said we don't share lots of information with people. So the purpose of this public hearing is, as we said earlier, to take comments and input from the members of the public, both in person and remotely, who have advice, guidance, or opinions to share with us this evening about communities of interest, potential boundaries, or other items related to our work. So let me open that up to the public, and we'll take those comments as we can this evening. If you are on Zoom, again, remind you to use the raise your hand feature, and we will work our way down that. Let me turn to the folks in the room and see if there's anybody who wants to make a comment this evening, either about District 1 or anything else. Step to the podium, sir. You could give us your name, and we'll start with you.
Quick question, though. Is there a different date you'd prefer to have comments on District 3? I never found a calendar.
There are, I think, 2 different hearings in District 3 coming up, but you're welcome to just jump in this evening if you'd like, and come back then.
Okay. So my name is Jay Freeman. I'm on the board of the Isla Vista Community Service District and the Local Agency Formation Commission, but I'm certainly not representing either of those here today. For both context and somewhat for full disclosure, I ran for 3rd District County Supervisor in 2016 and lost. I did better than anyone expected, particularly as somebody who had no background in political campaigning. But I also want to be clear, I have no interest in doing that again. But it has meant that I have a lot of interest and also just some knowledge about what's the 3rd District. So I think the 3rd District is fascinating. Another piece of background about myself. I live in Isla Vista, and I am a Democrat. But I grew up in the Midwest to conservative parents wearing cowboy hats and listening to country music. We lived in the Chicagoland area, but we never went to Chicago. My parents hated cities. So what I want to quickly mention today is what I think of as a cross-cutting concern within the scope of communities of interest that I think is core to one of the more controversial aspects of the work ahead of you. What conceptually is the 3rd District? I'm just going to be blunt for a second. That's who I tend to be. I think a lot of people look at the current 3rd District and analyze it as nothing more than a pawn in a larger partisan battle taking place every 4 years. But I think that ignores a particularly fascinating district that is actually united by a common set of circumstances due to how they are both structurally positioned and organized. Zooming out, the 3rd District is somewhat defined by a handful of large, separate entities that exist in their own governmental hierarchies. The University, the Air Force, and the Chumash, that are juxtaposed with communities, Isla Vista, Vandenberg Village, and the San Ynez Valley, with lots of interactions, negotiations, and compromises. Meanwhile, while the 3rd District includes cities, there is a pattern wherein it includes almost all of the small, disconnected communities in the county that, as unincorporated areas that are often served mostly by special districts, have a very particular mode of interaction with the county and with the supervisor whose job it is to work with them on issues. As I've spent more and more time over the years going to meetings in North County, I actually see a lot of overlap in the issues that they all have, and thereby the skill set of the supervisor that works with them. If you are a small community in a district dominated by a larger city, I claim you will have a harder time getting anyone to truly care. I thereby hope that you take this thought process, this idea of looking not at merely, although it's of course very important, but not looking merely at the demographics and at the political parties of the people in the area, but looking at how they interact with government, what their needs are with respect to their supervisor, what the day-to-day work that supervisor has to do, how they organize meetings in that area, that you take this into account as you organize not just the 3rd District, but also the 1st District you're talking about today. Because I think that leads to something particularly interesting with respect to this redistricting process. So thank you for hearing out my thoughts on this.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else here in the room? We'll do on this, or general comments we'll do at the end. Yep, stick around. Okay, let's turn to the online audience. Is there anybody if you're on our Zoom audience and you'd like to talk to this issue, please use the raise your hand button and we'll call on you to provide testimony.
I don't see any hands.
Very well. Going once, going twice.
And Chair Morris, I did receive one comment from an individual who was just identified as Mikey, a written comment, requesting that Isla Vista be separate from Solvang, Buellton, and northern towns.
Okay, thank you.
We do have a hand up now from Betsabe Lopez Morales.
Good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Okay. Hi, yeah, so I grew up on the west side of Santa Barbara, and I'm just making a comment that it's really important to me that we have a Latino majority district. I did grow up in this community, and we really care about having representative BIPOC leaders for our community that are focused on making services accessible and affordable to our community. And we really care about having affordable healthcare, transportation representative, and representative educators and leaders that are focused on this for our community, being very young and Latino families. And yeah, that's my public comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hands.
Very well. We will close the public hearing on this item for this evening. And we'll do that with an invitation to everybody to join us again on Friday at 3 o'clock. And then at the other sessions that are all listed on the website on the calendar. Mr. Bray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a quick question for Ms. Tilton on her presentation.
Yeah.
When you talk about the state prison inmate population being attributed to their home of record, how is Lompoc Federal Prison going to be handled? Is that going to be handled the same way as state prisons, or will they stay as a 3,000, wherever the inmate population is there in North County?
The California Statewide Database is the organization that is tasked with coming up with the population numbers after reassigning prisoners. And we have asked that question and have not received an answer.
Still, okay.
But we believe that they will zero out the federal prisons as well. But I can't give you a definitive answer.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioners, let's move on. We have a couple of other business items. Actually, I think we have one. Also, as a consequence of Commissioner Rios leaving us, we find ourselves with an opening on our ad hoc committee for outreach materials. Commissioner Adams, I believe you have expressed interest in participating in that group. Is that accurate?
That is correct.
Very well. So Commissioners, with your agreement, I'd like to appoint Commissioner Adams to replace Commissioner Rios on the Outreach Materials Ad Hoc Committee. I guess that's a motion. I'll need a second, and then we'll make that appointment.
I'll second it.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Tilton, I guess, any comments, any discussion? Okay. Ms. Tilton.
Commissioner Trosky?
Aye.
Commissioner Twibell?
Aye.
Commissioner McClintock?
Yes.
Commissioner Turley?
Yes.
Commissioner Bradley?
Yes.
Commissioner Kasich?
Yes.
Commissioner Bray?
Yes.
Commissioner Ochoa?
Yes.
Commissioner Rios?
She left early.
Okay. Commissioner Adams?
Sorry, yes.
And Chair Morris?
Yes.
Motion carries.
So let me just take a moment in regard to that to thank those that have been serving on it. Commissioner Bray, Vice Chair Turley, and Commissioner Rios. I think, the flyers, which are seated here on the table in front of Ms. Orden and have been emailed to those of us, have been very helpful. The PowerPoint, Commissioner Bray and I had an opportunity to co-present this PowerPoint at a Rotary meeting earlier last week. I don't know, recently. Time flies. And so the video that's now on the website, I think there's been a lot of really useful materials that are very helpful in helping folks understand both what we're doing and how they can participate in what we're doing. And so to those of you that have served on that committee and our team at Tripepi Smith, appreciate that. Thank you for your work on that. Any items that need to be placed on a future agenda? Commissioner Trosky.
I have a question regarding the outreach that Tripepi Smith is doing. And so I feel I'm in the dark on that, and I would love to know more about what they're doing. I know for this meeting, Karen and I did a lot of outreach on our own, and I just felt like we were on our own. I love the materials that they provided for us. They were super helpful. But I don't know what it is that you're doing, and so for this meeting on Friday in Goleta, I'd love to know what outreach is happening.
And Chair Morris, we do have an item on the agenda, a report from the legal counsel and demographer, and since the demographer is working in partnership with the public engagement firm, we can probably do that under that item under the agenda.
Thank you. Appreciate you pointing that one out. So, Mr. Ryder, can we invite you to the podium or the mic? You consider stand. Choose your position there, and let I don't know that we want to get into all of the details this evening. We can certainly agendize that for a future meeting as well. But maybe talk specifically about tonight's meeting and Fridays, and maybe next Tuesday, since they're all going to kind of run together really quickly.
Yeah, very, very fair point. They are going to run together quickly, which also risks certain confusion, right? So we do have some challenges there that we need to balance that out with. So first and foremost, We have had generally a mission to try to drive as much content as possible to the website and to encourage people to visit the website because it's such a dynamic environment with so many dates in flux and information changing. We've also placed a ton of emphasis on just transparency and opportunity to have information, right? So, for example, we have English and Spanish recordings of the meetings we've been having to try to make sure that there's as much information available for people to understand what the process is. And when we get to the end of the process, nobody can say, we didn't have all the information available, or people see how it happened, right? You welcome, check it all out. We have nothing to hide here. Specific to outreach and trying to get people to participate. So one general point I will make, and this is for the most part true in the engagements. I don't want to speak for NDC on this, but this is what I've heard folks say, and it's been my observation too. Until you start seeing real maps show up, your level of engagement typically is lower than once a map is there and somebody has something to react to, or the data's out, right? So we're doing a lot of pre-work as we need to do, as described in the measure that was passed here in Santa Barbara County, to get as much feedback early on as possible to help guide the map development process. But I would well expect that once we get to the point of having maps for people to see, they will have an opportunity to react, and we would expect more people to show up and have something to respond to at that point in time. Generally speaking, given all the agencies we work with, it's always the case that when we actually have something for the public to react to, there's much more engagement at that point because that's when people tend to engage. Now, additionally, so we have done a few key things that I think are really critical, aside from just having the website, having social media to promote the website itself, and collaborating with the county staff on doing that using the county's channels because, of course, they have much more established channels than we do as our independent redistricting commission at this time. Additionally, we've gone through and under advice from our communications subcommittee, went to all the community group calendars and started posting on all those calendars. So EdHat was one of the ones, for example, but I know there's many other publications in the area that have those calendars, those community calendars available. So we've been using those calendars to make sure we kind of just slow drip those into people's consciousness about the availability of these meetings because we well recognize that not everybody's going to Google search draw Santa Barbara County. So we have to go where the people are spending some time and looking for something to do or looking for how to activities that they can engage with or be involved with. Additionally, and this is another really critical point in our outreach process, is we made over 300 phone calls, I think, last week. And last week, and maybe some on Tuesday, but I think it was almost all done last week, to what was identified as kind of organizations that last year during the census process, the county was reaching out to reach hard-to-reach communities. And so we took a lot of that information that they had available and then went through and started making phone calls to those organizations. So these would typically be community nonprofits, particularly community nonprofits that have some sort of connection to an underrepresented or ethnic group in the community, in the county, as well as also calling churches, right? So pretty much every church under the sun that we could find, we were calling them and trying to talk to them about this. Now, some of them thought we were crazy to be giving them a phone call about redistricting. They didn't quite understand how connected to their religion, but we recognized that those were communities, and we would try to explain that to them, explain to them what the relevance was and why we felt that their community should at least have the opportunity to know about this. We left a ton of voicemails in the course of that process, and we actually have a second round of calls to be doing. But 300 phone calls to all those groups, that was a ton of outreach on that respect, and my thanks to Kylie Benzing on our team who helped make that happen. Claire, what else am I missing for some of the outreach? Oh, yes, thank you. Press releases. So the obvious one, so we did press releases. We've done 2 press releases now on this. The first press release prompted an interview with Chair Morris that was by the local public radio station. And then I'm perhaps in part from the press release we did, or just in part because of the general outreach work. I know, Chair Morris, you did another interview today with, I think, NewsHawk as well, that will hopefully bring some additional media coverage. So we are attempting to also use media to achieve some of that outreach. And then last but not least, as was just mentioned, we have provided digital versions of flyers and information, and we encourage you as commissioners to share that with your various constituencies that you come in contact with. We have some printed materials up here as well. Any members of the audience that might want some of these, please feel free, but certainly as commissioners, we'd encourage you to take these. They're both in Spanish and in English, and we'd love for you to take these. We also have some little business-sized cards over here that we've given to all the commissioners tonight, and for those who didn't weren't able to attend in person tonight for the commission, we'll figure out how to get those to you sooner rather than later, that have both English and Spanish kind of explanations of where to go to the website, learn more what the general kind of point is of your participation and the critical timeline issues that we're thinking about. So I think that's a pretty decent summary of the outreach we've done so far. We always know there's more work to do, which is why we love having the ad hoc subcommittee when we call upon them when we need to. And of course, I'd certainly welcome any feedback right now while I'm sitting here.
Do you have a specific, like a 5-sentence speech you give, or, something we could use if we make phone calls?
Yeah, actually, that's a great, so yes, we worked on that script with Kylie, and we will send that to all the commissioners with a BCC field email, and you all can get a copy of that.
And did your press release include the local printed, like the Montecito Journal, the Independent?
So we are using the county standard press release list. So it's whatever Gina and her team, and they're quite excellent, have done in all their past for their press relations. It's their standard list that they issue. So they actually issue the press release on behalf of us. Partly that's actually to our benefit because it's coming from a recognized, known news source in the county, and Gina has lots of great relationships with the media out here. So it's very helpful.
And then how would we have access to the printed material prior to a hearing?
Yeah, so fair point, because obviously these are for the meetings that is 2 days from now, and then we also have the meetings for the July 12th. So we are a few days out, and so our plan is to have these. We will bring additional copies to the July 12th meeting. That will be the flyers for the other meetings that'll be coming down the pipe. Partly we were I even think one of the 2 meetings in the upcoming week, we only recently had to change or solidify the location. I feel like it changed on us. So that's one of the problems with print is you go to print and then something changes, right? So, but we feel pretty locked on the rest of the meetings and the timing on those. So we'll be able to have all, I think it's fair to say that by the, we should be able to get copies of these to you. And if we don't get copies to you, we'll figure out how to get copies to you before the next in-person meeting in early August would be our plan.
Very good, thank you. Okay, is that calendar screen viewable? Is that being shared on Zoom? Is that what they're seeing as well? Let's do that again, just really quick. Can you switch that over? So just as a final reminder, I know we put these dates up a couple of times, but you can see here, so July 9th, the Goleta Union School District, July 12th, Lompoc City Council Chambers, and then we have 2 sessions in August in Santa Maria at the county facility on Betaravia and at the Solvang City Council Chambers. So that way, that'll be the 7 sessions that we need to hold before people start submitting maps or while they're submitting maps, getting started in that process. And then we'll go dark for a little while we let these guys manipulate data and catch up. Right on that side of it. So, very well.
We have a request to speak from Vice Chair Turley.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, first of all, Ryder, thank you so much for all that Pepe Smith has done so far. The outreach work has been fantastic. And I'm wondering for commissioners who want to go ahead and contact local organizations, give presentations to them, or perhaps go to something like a farmer's market. Is there a way for a commissioner to get in touch with you or the marketing subcommittee and request flyers printed for that event that they can pick up beforehand? What would the process be for that?
Please. Through the chair. So I'm going to look at the TV up here, even though Commissioner isn't there anymore. The quick answer is what we can do is we can make arrangements to print at, say, a FedEx Kinko's, no endorsement of them particularly, but somebody who's nearby, right, and send a print job to that location, then you could pick up at that location. So we can kind of span geography from afar.
Yeah, and Commissioner Turley, I think that's a great point that, I would encourage all of us to start reaching out to organizations we have some connections to. Mr. Bray took the bull by the horn and volunteered or voluntold me, and we joined forces to do that one. That's possible, right? As long as there's less than a majority of us in the room. Team up if you want, or go solo. And if you know of a group that will let you come and speak, by all means, ask them for that opportunity. I think now's the time. Anything else that we need to add to have Ms. Tilton add to a future agenda item? If not, I believe our last item of business is general public comment. I know we have at least one. So we'll take that. I would also invite those in the audience virtually, if you have a general comment on an item we haven't touched on this evening and would like to make that, if you'll raise your hand, we'll get to you in just one moment. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chair Morris and Commissioners. My name is Spencer Brandt. It's great to see you all in person. I think I've gotten to speak with you over Zoom. This is, I think, the first in-person public hearing that I've been to since the pandemic started. So very glad to see you all in person. With that being said, I really want to advocate for ensuring that there are remote options at the hearings that you hold. I know even just from speaking with a couple of people that I figured would be interested in this July 9th meeting that's happening in Goleta, the first question I got from them is, where's the Zoom link? And upon looking at the agenda, that's when I realized that I think that it's slated to be just an in-person meeting. And there's so much value to having in-person meetings, but especially with so much uncertainty right now with COVID and the Delta variant, and some people being a little bit cagey about wanting to come back and do things in public, in person, which I think is understandable. And also just with the fact that this is a very mobile time for people. It's vacation time. People aren't always in town. You know, I really just think since this has become so accustomed that there are these remote options, that those really be continued into the future for these types of meetings, especially when you think about, say, a meeting that's being held in Goleta to talk about District 2. But there are other areas that are directly adjacent, say the Elwood area, the Isla Vista UCSB area, where people may want to participate, but again, aren't in town for whatever reason. So I really think there are options. I know the system seems to be working really well tonight. I just hope that that's something that will become the standard for the rest of the outreach hearings that you hold. So thank you.
Thank you. Daniel, do we have any comments from the public?
We have two hands raised for now, and the first hand is from a call-in number.
Okay. So if you're calling in from 0723, if you could unmute and share your comment.
Hello, Commission. My name is Kira Solis. I know we've spoken at a lot of these before. I just wanted to say that a lot of Mr. Brandt's comments were cutting out if you were virtual. So I don't know if it will be doing that on the recording, but I just wanted to let you all know that so we can get an idea of what he said on the virtual line.
Thank you. Anyone else?
We have a request to speak from Mary Ellen Brooks.
Evening, Ms. Brooks.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. This is the first meeting I have attended. I would like to suggest I live in Vandenberg Village, and I'm a retired public school teacher. And it seems as if there's a bit of a struggle as far as outreach. And looking at the locations of your upcoming meetings, I would like to make a suggestion. If you're trying to work on diversity and make sure that you are hearing from, your constituents, you might consider having some of these sessions at a public school rather than at a government building. All you have to do is walk into any public school in Santa Barbara County, and you will get a wonderful sense of the broad diversity of our population. I would suggest perhaps contacting some of the PTA groups, even during the summer. And I don't know if everything is written in stone right now with the locations, but I just, as I look tonight at, the panelists, it seems like you're starving for diversity. And I think your public schools would certainly help with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more raised hands in the audience, but there are two commissioners requesting to speak.
Absolutely. So I see Commissioner Adams and then Commissioner Turley.
Thank you. I was just wondering about, just before we went to public comment, whether or not we would be hearing a report from the legal counsel tonight. It was reports from legal counsel and demographer.
I don't believe they had anything that they needed to share with us tonight.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Commissioner Turley.
Thank you. I'm wondering if Shalice can speak to some of the public comments in regards to location and a hybrid model, and exactly why the current agenda has these specific locations. There were pretty good reasons, however difficult, for why those locations were chosen over something like a public school. And I think it would be really valuable for us all to kind of understand the context of that. But I do agree that it would be really nice to have more of the outreach hearings at public schools, which I think individual commissioners can certainly arrange.
Yeah, Shalice, do you want to take that, or Daniel? I think you arranged the facilities, right?
Yes. So when it comes to finding locations for these remote sites, the workshops that aren't occurring in county facilities, we were kind of on our toes, because first we weren't sure if we were even able to be in person, and then we weren't sure what facilities would be available, because a lot of facilities are still not letting in-person meetings take place. And so we were also trying to figure out, are these workshops going to have a hybrid component like these meetings are not? And we came to the decision as staff, and Vice Chair Turley was on the call as well, that it would be more practical and feasible and more conducive to the workshop setting to have it in person, and to encourage people to come and dialogue with each other and be around tables and look at maps and have that in-person interaction that's not possible for the hybrid model, for those who are coming in remotely. And the other nice thing is that it allowed us to consider locations that did not necessarily have the multi-camera setup that we have for these hybrid meetings in these county facilities. And so, but before that decision was made, I had been under the understanding that we would want to have places that have the multi-camera setup. And so that's why I was looking at city council chambers like Lompoc and Solvang. And I made arrangements with them before we came to the decision that we would have these workshops in person. Had I had that information earlier, I probably would have reached out to other forums like schools. We did try one school in District 2, but they were very expensive. The contract would have been quite expensive, and they weren't really getting back to us, and we needed to have a location narrowed down. But thankfully, Goleta Union School District came through for us. So we do have, it's not an actual school, but it's a school-like setting for District 2, and it's right across from the Goleta Library, so a lot of people should be familiar with the setting. And then we have the other locations in the city council chambers. So hopefully that explains what went into the location selection.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think I want to just drill in on that point about the different format and what we'll be doing at the workshops as opposed to our business meetings that are also a hearing like tonight. And as I think has been said a couple of times, the intent for folks is to get bring your, we're going to have some markers and some of these paper maps, and we want to start drawing maps, right? And have staff available to, walk over to a table with 3 or 4 people and kind of coach them on the process a little bit. Or if they bring a laptop, walk them through how to log on and use some of these tools. So they're very different in approach as opposed to standing at a podium and speaking to us as we, sit and take some notes, right? We do have a couple of them. So the session, looking at my calendar here, well,
The August 4th.
the August 4th
August 4th, yeah.
session will be more in this kind of a format, and it will be a hybrid, is that correct? Because it's a business meeting as well.
Yes, and I just see that we, for some reason, the notation that the meeting will be in person and accessible via Zoom was deleted off that, so we'll add it back.
Yeah.
Yeah, August 4th will be the same setting as this, where folks will be able to interact by Zoom.
And then again, just as a last point, I would just reiterate what we've said earlier. While we may say, the meeting in Goleta, we want to focus on District 2, we're certainly going to take input on every district. So if the best way for an individual to submit their comments is virtually, put a star by August 4th, because that'll be an opportunity to do that as well, regardless of the district that you want to speak about. So I think that gets us to the close. Let me just check really quick. Is there no other hands have been raised for public comment?
Not that I see.
Okay, we'll close that.
I did have one written comment.
One more written comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, I already read that. I'm sorry.
We got them all in at the other, okay, very good. So thank you all for being here this evening. It's been nice to actually do meetings with people in a room and be able to look them in the eye. And we also had some folks in the audience here in the room. We appreciate that. Appreciate those who joined us remotely. We will adjourn until Friday at 3 p.m. the Goleta Union School District for our first workshop. Thank you.